So I didn't go and watch Wakanda Forever. And a lot of people look at me and say, wait a minute, you're black. You have to go and watch Wakanda Forever. The truth is, I didn't like Black Panther. I did go and see that, but I had a lot of issues with the movie. And I'm going to explain to you why I didn't like it and why I believe it actually, the first film anyway, did more harm than good to black people. Pay attention. When you look at white heroes, they tend to fight the enemy of the West at that given time. So Superman was created in 1933 and his enemy was the Germans, the Nazis. Wonder Woman was also the Nazis. Captain America also fought the Nazis. Iron Man fought a proxy for Al-Qaeda or Islamic terrorists. Now, the X-Men was a little bit different. They were actually an allegory for civil rights, but without the heroes actually being black. Because a lot of people say that Professor X and Magneto were basically Professor X's MLK and Magneto is Malcolm X in that universe. But it was just sort of weird that they used that as a template, but the actual heroes themselves weren't black. Black Panther is supposed to be an African hero, but he wasn't fighting the enemies of Africa. Portuguese slavers, British colonizers, American slavers, Belgians in the Congo, the French in West Africa, the Dutch in South Africa, Western multinational corporations that take our resources for peanuts. Black Panther avoided all the natural enemies of black and African people, and instead Wakandans were fighting each other. Wakanda is meant to be the most technologically advanced country in the world, but instead of helping the impoverished African nations next to them, they hid themselves because they didn't want to have to change their way of life. When Nakia went to save the kidnapped girls, which was an allegory for the kidnapped Nigerian girls, she was reprimanded by T'Challa. Now, my question is, why are you hiding to help fellow Africans? When Superman or X-Men or any of these other heroes help people, they do it in broad daylight and they act as a deterrent to the bad guys. Basically like, hey, we're here to protect these people, so if you come, you're gonna have to deal with us. But when black people have a hero, they hide. Why exactly isn't Nakia allowed to help Africans openly? Wakanda has medical tech that can cure a spinal injury in 24 hours. Which Shuri does for the CIA agent, that Ross dude. But you guys can't help Africa eradicate typhoid, HIV, sickle cell, yellow fever, and the multitude of other diseases that are killing millions of Africans for the decades that we've been dealing with. You guys have all seen the UNICEF, the Red Cross commercials, and all these things. You're seeing those images being pumped out about black African people, but we have an African hero who his country have this tech and you're not gonna cure those diseases forever? Very, very strange. Wakanda sends spies to America, but when the spy tries to help black people by giving them weapons to fight oppression, the Wakandan king kills it. When the US or UK send spies to Africa, they do it to affect regime change, leverage for resources, and basically give their nation an advantage. Let me give you an example. James Bond. James Bond is a spy. James Bond in every movie goes into all of these countries and all these places, and his basic focus is the Queen, who is not the Queen anymore, obviously it's not the King, but basically the Britain, the UK, and basically working in the interest of protecting the UK. He kills people, for goodness sake. He has a license to kill. That's what 007 means. But when Wakanda have spies, they can't do anything. That's the point of spies. But the Wakandan spies, the black spies, they are supposed to just spy. Killmonger gets created out of this situation, and rightly he hates Wakanda. He's the only character focused solely on black people, and he gets depicted as a murderous terrorist. It's almost like they made him Malcolm X and T'Challa MLK, then pushed for the T'Challa pacifist MLK ideology as the preferable option to the proactive ideology of the radical Killmonger. Like, that's basically what I was seeing. The moment Killmonger's butt touched the Wakandan throne, he was riding for black people. And very quickly, he was killed, but not before he gives one of the best speeches you'll ever hear. So anyway, that's actually, it's worth watching the movie just to see Killmonger's speech before he dies. It's as if they put all the positive ideas of black empowerment into him so they could kill him and thus symbolically kill the ideas that he had, essentially telling black people that this is not how you get ahead. You get ahead by being like T'Challa. Then, instead of Wakanda giving their tech to African nations, they give it to the UN, who, as any African who has sense will tell you, what the hell have they done to advance the continent of Africa in the decades they've allegedly been trying to do so? One of the biggest issues with African economies is the debt they owe to those Western nations. Wakanda have the most valuable mineral on Earth, vibranium. Why don't they pay off all of Africa's debt with a tiny bit of vibranium and then create a single African currency backed by vibranium, which could go against fiat money, which is what the West uses, which is backed by nothing? They would instantly turn Africa into the greatest empire the world has ever seen overnight. Think about the fact that after you pay your tickets or subscription or whatever the hell you pay to watch this film, which I view as silent pacification, most of that money goes to the very culture that has and is exploiting the African continent and continues to keep them in economic chains. Follow for information on my independent project to create genuine, authentic African heroes.